Yo, what is up, y'all? My name is Robert Donaldson, and welcome back to another edition of Rob's Best Bets. And in this video, we are once again talking about college football, baby, here in week 11. And I love this sport, but guess what? Sometimes the things you love, they treat you a little bit dirty. And the last two Saturdays have kind of been brutal for college football, in all honesty. Not kind of brutal. They've been fucking terrible. And it pisses me off when, obviously, sometimes we are going to get hit with those bad beats. If you're betting sports, guess what? There's a good and there's a bad side to some of these close affairs when it comes down to it. And last week with Penn State and with Cal, those are two notable ones where it's like, oh my gosh, that just sucks. But it's water off the duck's back. It's part of doing this. We love it. At the same time, we hate it. And I will say, there is analysis that needs to be done when you are hemorrhaging units on those Saturdays. And I have done that in terms of looking forward to week 11, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And what it really comes down to is, let's go ahead and kind of monitor our unit sizing when we're attacking certain angles. I definitely sharpened that up a little bit more in this video based on the last 2 weeks, and I do think that it was kind of a something that needed to happen. You could love a lot of angles, and I do love a lot of angles when you're looking at these massive slates, obviously, but kind of knowing how to attack them, I think, is the ultimate key when you're talking about college football handicapping. And I'm excited to jump into those angles with you guys in this video, but first, we do need to take a second to shout out today's sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. And if you haven't already signed up using promo code ROBDFB, I highly recommend you guys do so. And we also do the daily fantasy show with Colby Dant over on the College Experience YouTube channel. And it's not a daily show. I don't know why I framed it like that. It's a daily fantasy sports show centered around the college football world for Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And it's a really great show. Make sure you guys tune in. But with all that being said, let's go ahead and jump into our bets here in week 11. All right, first up, we are taking a look at a matchup here between Georgia Southern and Appalachian State. And this is a fantastic rivalry, folks. If you do not already know about it, it is dubbed as the deeper than hate rivalry. I fucking love it. I absolutely love it. And when you are talking about the actual dynamics at play in this game, two things kind of stand out. One, Appalachian State is a big brand who hasn't really been playing up to that big brand billing over the past couple seasons. And Georgia Southern, on the other side, is a team with a head coach in Clay Helton who kind of feels like he's on his way out sooner rather than later because they aren't living up to expectations. And although they aren't living up to expectations, the offense is still a very good tool that this team can utilize game in and game out. And with a 5.5 point spread in a rivalry with a head coach that really needs to kind of save his job in these sorts of spots, I do think that Georgia Southern is going to be live to win this game. And for that reason, I say we go ahead and take those 5.5 points here for 2 units for our first bet here in week 11. For pick number 2, we are heading out to the Friday slate where we have a matchup here between Tulane and Memphis. And when you're looking at this matchup, boy, is it a fantastic matchup. It would have been even better had Tulane beat UTSA last week, but we were on UTSA. We sniffed out that upset from a mile away, and the big part of that was Tulane, their offense is kind of been the focal point of this team. It's really been carrying them, but it has been a little bit inconsistent under the hood. But Memphis, on the other side, is a team that a lot of teams have been able to move the ball against. And although Memphis is kind of in the driver's seat potentially to make the G5, playoff spot and get that automatic qualifier into the college football playoff, that comes with a ton of pressure. And I do feel like Tulane is potentially a better team than Memphis if not up to their caliber. And because of last week's results and just how Memphis has been playing as of late against USF and Rice in particular, all of a sudden we're getting 3.5 points here, a full field goal and a hook. And for that reason, I don't care if it's in Memphis. I think Tulane's going to have a chance to win this thing outright, and I say we go ahead and take the 3.5 points here for 4 units for our second bet here in Week 11. All right, next up, we are heading out to Happy Valley, where we have a matchup here between the Indiana Hoosiers and the Penn State Nittany Lions. And last week we were on Penn State. That bet looked really, really good for a long period of time until Jeremiah Smith and that Ohio State offense turned it into hyperdrive, along with their defense pretty much shutting out Penn State in the second half. And when you are looking at this matchup here, a lot of people are going to kind of raise the synonymous sort of nature of Indiana, where they're at right now, and Ohio State. And obviously, the big difference that lies here is Penn State is going to be at home. This is not going to be in the Horseshoe. This is not going to be in Bloomington. And when you are looking at this game in sort of its own little vacuum, once again, I do think that this Penn State defense that really did show up in the first half against Ohio State is where we can kind of bank our money on. And that spread is enticing to lay it at only 15 points or 14.5, depending on where you shop. But I say we go ahead and take those 15 points with the Nittany Lions for 2 units for our third bet here in Week 11. For pick number 4, we are traveling out to the MAC, where we have a matchup here between Bowling Green and Eastern Michigan, our 2-7 Eastern Michigan Eagles, who seemingly always cover for us when we need them to cover for us. Honestly, this has been our most profitable team this season, and once again, it really relies or kind of lies within the nature of a bad-looking win-loss record, but a competent actual team when they get to play competition that they can actually compete against. Because believe it or not, there's a hierarchy in the MAC. There are some really, really good teams, there are some middling teams, and then there's some really big basement dwellers. And although the 2-7 record may indicate sort of that latter category of being a basement dweller, the reality is that Eastern Michigan is kind of in the middle, and a lot of those losses have been to the top of the conference in the MAC. And when you're playing Bowling Green, they are a legitimate basement dweller, in my opinion. And for that reason, when you have this sort of pick'em-esque line that's out there, and I recommend you guys shop around for a good money line price in this game, but I really do think we're extracting a lot of value in this type of spot. And for that reason, I say we go ahead and bet on the Eastern Michigan Eagles on the money line for 4 units for our fourth bet here in Week 11. For pick number 5, we are heading out to Iowa City, where we have a really, really fun matchup here between Oregon and Iowa. It's a very highly anticipated game because Iowa played Indiana very, very tough when they came to Iowa City. Arguments can be made that Iowa was the better team on that day, and honestly, even as an Iowa fan, I subscribe to that theory that, hey, they were really just a first down conversion away from putting away Indiana, who's looked like a superhero against everybody else. And obviously, Iowa over recent weeks has looked very, very impressive, having just come off of a win against Minnesota where they won 41-3. This Phil Parker defense is humming. This offense, despite the lack of passing yardage, is really moving the ball well on the ground and in key spots. And obviously, as I was always known for, the special teams is also stepping up as well. Everything sort of seems to be humming, and with Oregon having enough of a billing to attract enough bettors to that side, we are seeing a spread here of 6.5 points. Nearly a full touchdown. We didn't quite get there. If you do want to buy it up to 7 points, I understand, but I think Iowa is actually going to have a really good shot to win this game outright. And even if they don't, I do think it's going to be within that 3 to 4 point range. not the 6 to 7 point range. And for that reason, we are getting a ton of value betting on a 6.5 point line with the home team who's playing really good football. And for that reason, I say we go ahead and jump on it for 4 units for our 5th bet here in week 11. For pick number 6, we are heading out to a matchup here in the Sun Belt between Texas State and Louisiana. And when you're looking at this matchup here, neither program has had nearly the kind of year that they wanted to have. And Texas State most notably, because G.J. Kinney was on a lot of short lists for that next level head coaching gig, and he's pretty much coached himself off it. You know, it's going to take sort of a miracle run at a Texas State here, one, to regain relevance or even a bowl eligibility status, but also just an incredible run to resurface a great head coach or a promising head coach back to the levels that he came into with this season. And I do think that Texas State on the offensive side of the ball does not have many issues, but that defense is atrocious. And when you are looking at this matchup here, I think they're actually going to be aided by the fact that Louisiana has had their own sort of problems on offense and defense all season long. And for that reason, I do think we take a stab here on Texas State to get back in the win column and just eat the juice a little bit on the money line. I'm getting minus 134. There's some minus 140s out there. If that's what you're stuck with, that's ultimately fine. But let's not go too crazy. Let's just bet 2 units on the Bobcats here. And let's go ahead and see if G.J. Kinney and company can get back in the win column. For pick number 7, we are heading out to Virginia, where we have a matchup here between Wake Forest and the Virginia Cavaliers. And when you're looking at this matchup here, Virginia has had a dream season. And if you guys watched, we had a couple really bad beats last week on some pretty sizable bets. And this was one of the more notable ones where Cal was driving down 3 points with 40 seconds left to go. And they throw a pick 6 on our 4.5 point line, and we do not cover the game because Virginia wins by 10. And that's been a lot of Virginia games as of late. Credit to them. They've been winning the games late that really truly do matter, and this has been a banner year for the program. But Wake Forest has kind of been one of those thorn in the side type of teams all season long. They had a chance to knock off Georgia Tech. They have played well against a number of top-end teams in the ACC as well, alongside Georgia Tech. Notably, they just beat SMU a couple weeks back. They beat Virginia Tech. And I do think that although Wake Forest is kind of this mixed bag result kind of team, that's one of those teams that you want to take a shot on when they're catching a near full touchdown. And that's what they are in this game. And I say we go ahead and take them for 6.5 points for 2 units for our 8th bet here in week 11. For pick number 9, we are heading down to Tuscaloosa, Alabama, where we have a matchup here between LSU and Alabama. And obviously, very interesting dynamic here. We have LSU in the post-Brian Kelly era. And it's been hilarious watching the governor talk about LSU, talk about the failed hire, be very transparent that he just fucking hated the AD or whoever kind of made the hire at LSU for Brian Kelly. And because of that, I do think that LSU as a football team, in terms of their interim head coach, the players that played below Brian Kelly, they might be able to kind of get up in this type of spot and say, hey, yeah, it was that guy's fault. It wasn't our fault. And that's what we just saw with Florida last week against Georgia when they nearly knocked off the Georgia Bulldogs with their interim head coach. And although LSU has had a, well, not so great season, they still have some really quality weapons. And heck, they're still a 5-3 ball club. I think that if Brian Kelly was in this game, this line is more along the lines of 6.5 or 5.5, and for that reason, 10 points, a touchdown, a full touchdown that is, and a field goal for a team that, I mean, they competed with Ole Miss, right? They've competed in a number of different spots with at Vanderbilt, at Ole Miss. They didn't compete last time out against Texas A&M, but that was kind of a dead-in-the-water type of game that never felt like it had life. And I do think that, again, that post that firing, they will have a chance to beat Alabama here. And I think when you're catching 10 points and you have that notion behind your back, man, I say we go ahead and go for it. We take the 10 points for 4 units for our second to last bet here in Week 11. All right, for our final bet here in Week 11, we are taking a look at a matchup here in the Big Ten between Nebraska and UCLA. And obviously the big news out of Nebraska is that Dylan Raiola is going to be out for the remainder of the season. And if you guys knew my thoughts on Dylan Raiola, I don't really think that's a major loss, because I don't think that Dylan Raiola is some, top end level of the league QB. I just don't see it. He makes some good throws, but there's a lot of more negatives I think that are associated with his game that people gloss over because of that 5-star billing coming out of high school, because of how he carries himself, because of the program that he plays for, and wanting to believe in the upside of Nebraska. I thought that was a lot more to do than his actual playing ability. And I think that even if he was playing in this game, UCLA was the spot to take. Now, unfortunately, we do have a lesser line than I would like to take with UCLA, but in a pick'em scenario with Nebraska traveling out west on kind of this weird sort of tilt of, hey, new quarterback in the game, let's see what happens, I actually do think that UCLA is going to win this game. And on the money line, I'm getting minus 120. I say we take it for 2 units for our final bet here in Week 11. All that being said, I really want to thank you guys for checking out today's video. And if you do want to show some love, make sure you drop a like in the video, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and make sure you guys comment down below. But with all that being said, y'all, I will see you in a future video. Take it easy.